Part 40. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 403. An invincible life is so lonely. Duan Yunzheng raised his hand, looked at the storage ring on his fingertips, and murmured to himself. At this moment, every finger of his was covered with a bunch of storage rings. And these were usually hung by him. The storage ring on his finger is already filled with the harvest of his archaeological trip to the Dark Realm. The technique of asking fellow Taoists to stay, taught by the immortal Emperor's soul, is really of infinite use. Duan Yunzheng said happily. When he first came to the realm of darkness, he felt that his future was bleak. Not only was he thrown into this miserable place, but he also brought the ominous object of the great Loto sword embryo with him, and even practiced that way. The strange magic of friends please stay can cause danger at every turn. But the final result surprised him. The magic of friends please stay is really too evil and terrifying. Every once in a while, when after the bad luck in his body accumulates to the extreme, he will find a strong man from the dark realm to use this technique of asking friends to stay. And all the strong men from the dark realm who are called by him are without exception. The final outcome was not too good. Duan Yunzheng still vaguely remembers the first true dark immortal he called with the technique of asking friends to stay after he just arrived in the dark realm. At that time, he fell into his territory and smashed him to death. One of his favorite juniors was discovered, and then he went after him crazily. In the end, Duan Yunzheng used the technique of asking fellow Taoist friends to stay, and temporarily made him retreat. But after a while, Duan Yunzheng came back. He found that the territory of the dark true immortal was completely deserted. It turned out that when he was sent to the border of the two realms for a round of battle, he happened to be drawn against a true immortal on the side of the immortal territory whose cultivation techniques were extremely restrained. And the result was naturally obvious. Although the dark immortal kept struggling, he still could not avoid being eventually destroyed. It was extremely unlucky. Only then did Duan Yunzheng know the true power of this Dafa. It was only then that, Duan Yunzheng has obviously become much more bold in his actions in the dark realm. After tens of thousands of years, he has not only harvested many treasures. His own cultivation level has also been promoted from the realm of the supreme to the peak of the true immortal. With one step, you can break into the legendary realm of the immortal king. However, although the journey was smooth, Duan Yunzheng still maintained some caution. At the very least, he never dared to go deeper into the realm of darkness. Because there are existences of the immortal kings in the realm of darkness. Now, he doesn't know whether his technique of please stay, friend can also work on the existence of the realm of the immortal king. If it works, it's okay to say, but if it doesn't, if it works, then the ending waiting for him will not be good. Damn it, infinite heavenly lord, so when can Pandeo return to the immortal realm? Duan Yunzheng complained without any pain. In fact, he just said that. During these tens of thousands of years, he had long been happy in the dark realm. Now Duan Yunzheng is even more determined. He has achieved his great aspiration. If he doesn't rob the ancient tomb of the powerful man in this dark realm, he will never return to the immortal realm. However, this area has been almost explored, and it's time to delve deeper. Duan Yunzheng thought for a long time and decided to explore a little further. In the past tens of thousands of years, he has almost visited the outer areas of the dark domain, and it is difficult to gain anything. Moreover, now he has reached the peak of the true immortal realm. Ordinary supreme inheritances will not be taken seriously by him. Only the inheritance of the same true immortal realm can make him a little bit interested. But it is only a little bit of interest. That's all. After all, his current cultivation level is here. Even if it is an inherited ancient tomb in the true fairyland, for him, most of the time the treasures obtained from it can only be used to decorate the collection, but not for him. What real help? Moreover, the real treasures are usually carried by those dark immortals at all times, and will not be buried in the ancient tombs of their ancestors. And most of these dark immortals who carry the treasures have already go to the border between the two realms to fight with the immortal realm. As a result, the treasures left to Duen Yun's Hung will naturally become very few. Therefore, Duen Yun's Hung, who is itchy in his heart, decided to go deep into the dark realm after some thought. Let's explore. Infinite Heavenly Lord. Master Tao, I'm not greedy, I just went in to explore and try not to alarm anyone. Duen Yun's Hung muttered to himself. However, to be on the safe side, he still used the supreme secret technique to create a clone. His true body found a place to hide, but he ordered the clone to go first and explore. In this way, come on, even if you encounter any danger, with the clone in front of you, your real body will not be in danger. At most, you will only lose a clone. After tens of thousands of years of accumulation, Duen Yun's Hung can be said to be wealthy, so naturally he doesn't care about this clone. The loss. After some preparations for casting spells, a differentiated body that was exactly the same as Duen Yunchen's original body was chopped out by him. Infinite Heavenly Lord. Duen Yunchen's clone bowed towards the main body, and then used the hiding technique to quietly walk towards the depths of the dark realm. Infinite Heavenly Lord. What a hell! Moving forward, Duen Yunchen's clone couldn't help but complain after a long time. I don't know if there was something wrong with the direction he chose, or something else. He had been traveling for 10 days, but after 3 days, inside, not even a shadow of a creature from the dark realm was found, let alone any ancient tomb of a strong man. The vast sky and earth were empty, like a dead zone, with nothing. How could this happen? What happened? Duen Yun's Hung was puzzled. But after thinking for a long time, he couldn't figure it out. In the end, he could only attribute it to his bad luck. It's been 10 days since I left. I still don't believe it, Master Dao. Keep moving forward. Duen Yunchen's clone gritted his teeth and didn't believe in evil. He didn't believe it and kept moving forward. Is it possible that in 10 days, there will still be no creatures from the dark realm? He made up his mind, and Duen Yun's Hung did not hesitate, went into battle, and continued move forward. Time flies, and another 10 days have passed. But what makes Duen Yun's Hung speechless is that another 10 days have passed, and he still has found nothing, not even a human figure. Could it be that I really went wrong, Master Dao, and this is a dead zone? To this day, even Duen Yun's Hung himself can't help but wonder if he has gone to the wrong place, and his tone is full of hesitation. However, just when he is about to give up, the scene in the distance can't help but, his eyes lit up. What did he see? Directly in front of him, at the end of heaven and earth, was an ancient and majestic dark land where ancient buildings undulated. Incomparably grand and majestic. It was simply better than what he had seen before. Any building complex in the true immortal territory that he had visited was much more majestic and magnificent. What made Duen Yun's Hung even more delighted was that the ancient buildings were surrounded by a faint aura of darkness and seemed to be lifeless. Living here is like an empty dead city. What a great place! Duen Yun's Hung couldn't help but his eyes lit up. Isn't this natural Jedi tailor-made for him? There is an ancient and majestic dark building in the sky, but there seems to be no trace of any living beings. It is really the best archaeological location. Please subscribe. Please customize. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 404. Infinite Heavenly Lord, God is really helping me. Duen Yun's Hung rubbed his hands excitedly. What is this? It is simply an archaeological place gifted to him by God. It is far away from the hustle and bustle of the world, and the best thing is that there are no dark creatures to disturb it. In this way, I can devote myself wholeheartedly to the great cause of archaeology. However, Master Dao, I don't have much time left. I only have 5 days at most before I have to return. Duan Yunzhong couldn't help but murmured. After staying in the Dark Realm for tens of thousands of years, he had already used the secret technique of fellow deist, please stay to divert bad luck on more than one powerful creature in the Dark Realm. And as time passed, the passage of time is probably because he transferred a lot of bad luck. Every time he accumulates bad luck, the speed becomes slower and slower. From the beginning, he has to transfer bad luck once every 3 or 4 days. 5 days and 6 days later. Finally, it is now. Duan Yunzhong only needs more than a month to transfer bad luck once. And although he went here as a clone, the disadvantage is that no matter the clone or the main body, the bad luck needs to be transferred. Otherwise, even if the main body has transferred the bad luck, the clone has not. The bad luck of the clone will still drag down the main body. Now it has taken him 20 days to get here. The most in this place staying for 4 or 5 days is the limit. When the time comes, you must return immediately, otherwise all your efforts will be wasted. Let's take a look at what we can gain from this place. Duan Yunzhong no longer hesitated, and hurriedly rushed towards the building in the distance shrouded in a faint aura of darkness. I'm afraid he was the only one in the entire immortal realm who dared to do this. It would have been the immortal kings of the immortal realm to come here. And dare not be so bold. After all, the dark aura can be said to be something that makes people laugh. Even if they are in the immortal king realm, if they are not careful, there is a risk of being contaminated by it and falling. But Duan Yunzhong has nothing to do with it. He is afraid of it. After all, even the great Logo Sword embryo, which can be called the most evil thing in the endless multiverse, is held by him. He is also the accumulation of immeasurable tribulations and bad luck. What does a mere dark aura mean? Can it be compared with the bad luck in his body? If it were possible, Duan Yunzhong would really like to have a chance with that dark power to see whose power is the real source of all evil. Keep going. Not long after, Duan Yunzhong had arrived at the ancient building surrounded by the dark atmosphere. This is a place full of deathly silence, with no trace of any dark creatures around. Duan Yunzhong started exploring randomly from an ancient palace. To his surprise, there are actually many treasures in the ancient palace. Moreover, there are actually many snow-white skeletons in that ancient palace. The owners of those skeletons are all creatures from the Dark Realm. It's as if this place was also the location of a powerful force in the Dark Realm. But in the end, no one knew what happened, which led to a catastrophic accident that caused all the dark creatures here to die without even a trace of preparation. Because judging from the scattered postures of those skeletons, Duan Yunzhong was able to judge that when the inexplicable crisis came, the creatures here were completely unprepared, and they were all killed instantly. There are even many storage bags and storage rings on these skeletons. This discovery made Duan Yunzhong ecstatic. He quickly stepped forward, put these storage bags and storage rings into his pocket, and examined them carefully. The result of the investigation made him grin almost to the back of his head. Great harvest, great harvest. The storage rings and storage bags are filled with all kinds of treasures, even higher quality than the treasures scattered in this ancient palace. Make a lot of money, make a lot of money. Duan Yunzhong happily muttered to himself, but there was no hesitation in his movements. Like the wind and the remaining clouds, all the treasures in this place were swept away. After that, he became even more powerful, and moved in various ancient palaces. Moving around, frantically collecting all kinds of treasures here. Time passed slowly. After searching for nearly a day, Duan Yunzhong had not yet finished searching for the treasures here. And it was just the harvest of this day's time. Which is enough to equal his total harvest in the past nearly 10,000 years. This is really strange. Where is this place? Although he gained more and more, the further he went, the more Duan Yunzhong couldn't help but beat the drum in his heart. Where is this place? Judging from the location, this place can be regarded as the hinterland of the Dark Realm. And just judging from the treasures possessed by the creatures here, it is enough to know that the power here, even in this Dark Realm, can be regarded as an extremely powerful force. It was far beyond what the true immortal inheritances he had encountered before could compare to. It is very likely that it is the inheritance of the immortal king. Such a powerful force is in the realm of darkness. Who can destroy such a huge force in an instant? Moreover, after destroying the forces here, none of the various treasures here were touched, as if they didn't care. This is so weird. Could it be that after the death of the immortal king who was the master of strength in this area, other immortal kings who had enmity with him in the past came and uprooted this place? Duan Yunzhong couldn't help but guess. After thinking about it, it seems that this is the only reason, which can be regarded as the most reliable guess. He shook his head and put aside the speculation in his heart for the time being. Duan Yunzhong continued to concentrate on searching here. Who cares about him to the end? How did it become extinct? What does it have to do with me? What I have to do is to collect all the treasures in this place, that's all. Duan Yunzhong crazily collected all kinds of treasures. In the end, unknowingly, arriving at the center of this endless dark building, in front of the most majestic ancient palace. Due to his previous experience, Duan Yunzhong stepped into this ancient palace without much vigilance. And when he entered the ancient palace and saw the scene inside the ancient palace, he couldn't help but be shocked. Because he found that there were living creatures in this ancient palace. It was a statue surrounded by endless black mist. The burly figure in the middle. He sat quietly in the middle of the ancient palace, eyes closed, motionless. If it weren't for the soul flame dancing quietly between his eyebrows, Duan Yunzhong would even think it was a lifeless corpse. The aura of the living being is completely restrained, and it is wrapped in the endless dark aura, making it impossible to find out his specific strength. But it seems that this living being has been here for endless years. It is expected that its strength is also weak. Not going anywhere. The moment he saw this creature, Duan Yunzhong had the intention to retreat. However, before he could make a move, something horrifying happened to Duan Yunzhong. The dark figure sitting cross-legged in the center of the ancient palace, the creature seemed to be aware of his arrival and suddenly opened its eyes. A pair of pure black eyes without any emotion were staring at Duan Yunzhong coldly, making his heart beat wildly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 405. What kind of scene is this? A dark creature that had been entrenched in the ancient black palace for an unknown amount of time suddenly opened its eyes and stared at Duan Yunzhong. The coldness in that gaze couldn't help but make Duan Yunzheng's heart beat wildly and his whole body feel chilled. Infinite humming, heavenly lord, something is going to happen. Duan Yunzhong felt a warning sign in his heart. Although he didn't know what the existence of this dark creature in front of him was. But there was no doubt that it was incomparable to the dark immortals he had encountered before. It could make him feel a warning sign. It's a masterpiece. Those dark immortals don't have this ability. Ahem, infinite heavenly lord. Pandeo was just passing by here and had no intention of disturbing him. Please allow Pandeo to leave immediately. Duan Yunzhong laughed with a stiff expression, and then retreated, preparing to leave the ancient palace. The dark creature's eyes were cold, still staring at him, but without the slightest movement. Duan Yunzhong saw this and retreated. His steps couldn't help but slow down. He had always been the one who fished when he saw something good and ran away when he saw danger. The sight of this dark creature just now made him feel alarmed, and the first thought in his heart was naturally to run away. But now he discovered that when he retreated, this dark creature just looked at him without making any movement. What does this mean? Duan Yunzheng's mind raced, and countless possibilities instantly rose in his mind. If this dark creature he has a good temper and does not intend to pursue himself, Duan Yunzheng will not believe it even if he kills him. Who among the creatures in the dark realm doesn't look full of hatred when they see the creatures in the immortal realm? Not to mention, as a creature in the immortal realm, he was even more hated for appearing openly in the hinterland of the dark realm. But now, this dark creature did not move at all. Could it be that, this guy can't move? Duan Yunzheng couldn't help but have this idea in his mind. Ahem, Pandeo is really gone. Duan Yunzheng said tentatively again. Infinite Heavenly Lord. Pandeo is about to leave, why don't fellow Taoists give him a gift? Duan Yunzheng tried frantically, but he could only see the anger rising in the eyes of the dark creature, but no movement was seen. After seeing this, Duan Yunzhen's hanging heart finally fell into his stomach. Sure enough. He can't do this. Move. He can't move. Ha 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 ha. At this moment, Duan Yusheng was so happy that he almost wanted to sing a song. Such a good opportunity, God is really helping me. Infinite Heavenly Lord. This fellow Taoist, I was planning to leave and didn't want to disturb your spiritual practice, but you are such a bad person. The poor man is about to leave. If you don't say farewell, you should at least show off, right? To be sitting here with such a prickly attitude, with no intention of sending him off. This kind of behavior is really too much, and he doesn't take the poor person seriously at all. Old God Duan Yunzheng said. As he spoke, he walked towards the dark creature sitting cross-legged in the ancient palace. However, Pandeo has always been a generous person and will not care about this with you. Simply take 1 or 2 treasures from you and regard it as compensation for your unreasonable behavior. Duan Yunzheng said leisurely. At the same time, he walked to the dark creature and wanted to start and plunder the dark creature. If someone heard these words, they would probably be stunned. This fat man is really how shameless. Not only did he break into someone's home, but he also found such a reason to want to search for treasures from the other person. Such a shameless person, I have searched all over the world, but I can't find one. Kago. Just when Duan Yunzheng was about to take action, the dark creature suddenly roared, which startled Duan Yunzheng, and he subconsciously jumped out a long way. After seeing that the dark creature was just bluffing, Duan Yunzheng was frightened and couldn't help but look unhappy and said. What is it called? Master Dao, I'm just asking for money, and I don't intend to do anything to you. But you dare to roar at Master Tao, so I need to punish you. As he spoke, Duan Yunzheng took out a true immortal weapon that looked like a mace-like club from his arms. This weapon was obtained when he raided a true immortal ancient tomb for inheritance, and it was barely considered a weapon. It is a true immortal treasure. After shaking the mace in his hand, Duan Yunzheng did not hesitate and threw it at the head of the dark creature with all his strength. The majestic force caused the mace to pass by. Everything in the void was torn apart. There is no doubt that even a being in the true fairyland would definitely die or be injured if he was hit on the head by the stick. However, something that surprised Duan Yunzheng happened. This a blow that was enough to cause the head of a peak true immortal to bleed and be seriously injured. However, the dark aura around this dark creature did not even break through, so it stopped in mid-air, and then fell to the ground helplessly. This. Duan Yunzheng was shocked. This guy's turtle shell is so hard? Just when he was shocked, an extremely obscure wave sounded in his ears. You, successfully angered, this king, and I want you, to die. With the sound of the obscure wave, the dark aura around the dark creature suddenly began to tremble violently. And the silent body of the dark creature began to move slowly. It looked like he wanted to stand up and attack Duan Yunzheng. However, looking at his current state, he seemed to be under a lot of pressure. His body was shaking for a moment, but he did not stand up instantly. I apologize. It can actually move. Seeing this scene, Du and Yun's Hung understood. It's not that this guy can't move, but that he will pay a heavy price when he moves. This guy didn't pay attention to him before, but then he was obviously annoyed by his actions, and then take action. It looks like you have to pay some price and kill yourself to vent your anger. Ahem, fellow Taoist, I have something to discuss. Duan Yun's Hung wanted to grease his feet and escape, but found that he had already been locked by the creature in front of him and couldn't move at all. In desperation, he couldn't help but blurt out, "Fellow Taoist, please stay." Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 406. Seeing the seemingly extremely powerful being in front of him being irritated by himself, Duan Yun's Hung had no choice but to blurt out the words "Fellow Taoist, please stay" in desperation. However, after saying that, he began to regret it. For this technique of transferring bad luck, one must choose a strong person, so that he can bear the transfer of bad luck. Although the guy in front of him looks like a strong man, he is obviously extremely unlucky. In this case, can my own bad luck transfer technique still be effective? Duan Yun's Hung didn't know. But now, it seems that only a dead horse can be used as a living horse doctor. After blurting out the words "Fellow Taoist, please stay," Duan Yunchen's eyes focused on the dark creature that suddenly stood up. And to his surprise, after he blurted out the words, the body of the dark creature suddenly froze, and actually stopped. Then, the dark mist surrounding him began to fluctuate violently. His complexion also began to turn pale and pale. The wind is blowing. When Duan Yun's Hung saw this, he did not dare to stay here for a long time. He quickly rubbed oil on his feet and left the hall. However, when he left, he did not forget to throw a monitoring device into the hall, preparing to observe this dark creature. Next changes. And just after Duan Yun's Hung rubbed oil on his feet and slipped away, the dark creature's eyes were full of anger and panic. How can it be? Extremely difficult fluctuations came from his mouth. At this moment, he felt that his condition was getting worse and worse, and the already extremely bad power in his body seemed to have its own consciousness, running rampant in his body. No matter how he suppressed it, not only would it not have the slightest effect, but it would actually get worse. This situation made him so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. Who is he? Even among all the beings in the Immortal King realm, in the entire Dark realm, they are famous beings. The Immortal King. King Tai. In the realm of darkness, there are few beings who rely on their own strength to achieve the realm of the Immortal King. His status and strength among the Immortal Kings in the Dark realm are similar to that of the ancient kings to the Immortal Kings in the Immortal realm. It's a pity that in the Great War with the Immortal realm, endless years ago, the Immortal King Tai fought fiercely with the top beings of the Immortal realm. Although he finally united with other Immortal Kings and defeated his opponent, he was also severely damaged and almost died. After returning with a strong breath, the king had to sacrifice all his descendants in his clan in order to heal his wounds. It turned into pure life energy and was absorbed into his body to stabilize the injuries in his body that were about to collapse. But this was still not enough, so in the end he was forced to throw himself into the darkness, hoping that the power of darkness could save him. Now that endless years have passed, with the dual help of the power of darkness and the power of the sacrificed blood, Tai's old injuries have gradually stabilized. Just a few more years of cultivation, coupled with various immortal treasures, would be enough to bring him back to his former peak and once again achieve the prestige of a great king. Because this is the territory of the King Tai, and he is currently concentrating on cultivation and recovery. Therefore, no one from the other immortal kings and ancestors would bother him. As for other creatures in the Dark realm, they dare not come here. Therefore, for endless years, the life of the immortal queen has been very peaceful. But unexpectedly, this calm was broken today. A fat Taoist priest who didn't know where he appeared came to his territory openly. The extensive search for treasures is not just a matter of fact. Now he actually wants to reach out to him. Who is he? One of the supreme beings in the entire Dark Realm, the aloof immortal king. All living beings must worship him devoutly when they see him. Even the immortal kings in the immortal realm would feel fear when they saw him. But the guy in front of him not only showed no fear at all, but actually dared to humiliate him like this. How can Tai be humiliated in such a situation? In a rage, even if he was seriously injured and received some more injuries, the immortal queen would kill this fat man first to eliminate the hatred in his heart. Everything was going well, but when Tai was about to take action, he didn't know what happened suddenly. The power in his body seemed to be out of control, running rampant in his body. The already damaged meridians became even more messy. The place that was finally repaired was hit again. What's even more disappointing is that the wounds he suffered in the past were already slowly healing. But now, he suddenly heard a clear and loud voice, ringing in the deepest part of his heart. That was the sound of his Tao breaking. If his Tao were broken, his life would no longer exist. At this moment, all you need to do is activate your own strength and use infinite energy to delay the break of your own Dao foundation. But in Tai's current state, he can't even activate his power. As soon as the power is activated, the body becomes even more messy, and the foundation breaks faster. This is a dead end with no solution. Why? Tai muttered. He simply couldn't understand why everything had developed to the current situation. Moreover, until now, he had never thought of Duan Yun's Hung as the reason. After all, the fat Taoist priest just now couldn't even break through his defense. How could it be related to his current state? The immortal king was too unbelievable. At this moment, he had no choice but to do anything. Just when he was anxious, a strange force suddenly surged inside his body, giving him a fatal blow. Damn it! The eyes were about to burst. He was so familiar with the sudden burst of power hidden in his body. It was the enemy of the immortal realm who had fought with him in the past. Unexpectedly, the other party actually hid such a power. It was in the deepest part of his body. It had been holding back until now, and then it burst out and gave him a fatal blow. No! Tai roared, wanting to call other immortal kings to come to help him and solve everything. But it was already too late. That power came out at the right time, when he was at his weakest. As soon as it appeared, take his life directly. Laugh. There was a sound like a bubble being popped. Taiji's body trembled, and finally, in his unwilling expression, he turned into nothingness and dissipated into nothingness. The immortal King Tai has fallen. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 407. Kindness. Duan Yun's Hung, who had fled the hall, suddenly stopped, with a look of disbelief on his face. What did he see? That powerful existence shrouded in endless black mist suddenly disappeared. No, that's not right. Look like that. Zi didn't seem to have disappeared, but seemed to have transformed into a Tao. Duan Yunchen's face was full of surprise and uncertainty. Really become enlightened? You're not lying to me, Master Dao, are you? Duan Yun's Hung was doubtful. By now he could tell that the strong man in the hall must be an existence above the true immortal realm. Maybe he was an immortal king in the dark realm. Even after tens of thousands of years, he has known that his bad luck transfer technique is very powerful. But every time he uses it, the objects he uses it are only powerful people in the true fairyland. Moreover, even after using it, few of them fall on the spot. Nowadays, the strong man in this hall is obviously much more powerful than the one in the real fairyland. Duan Yun's Hung had never expected that this bad luck transfer technique would have much effect before, but it was just a dead horse treated as a living horse doctor. But no, think about it, it seems to have a miraculous effect in the end. This mysterious and powerful existence was actually cursed to death by his own words. Infinite Heavenly Lord, this can't be true. Duan Yunzheng murmured to himself, and there was still an unreal feeling in his heart. How dare I kill an immortal king? Just when Duan Yunzheng was suspicious, the next change confirmed his guess. Above the 9 days, there were dark clouds. The dense mist shrouded the entire nearby land with a radius of millions of miles. Then a torrential rain of blood fell from the sky, and there was even a faint sound of crying from the sky. This situation, this scene, is like the world and the earth are mourning together. After seeing this scene, Duan Yunzheng just it can be completely confirmed that the powerful man in the hall has really fallen. Such a doomsday and evil scene can only appear when a being in the realm of the immortal king falls. A strange vision appears in the sky, and the immortal king falls. In other words, the mysterious existence in the ancient palace has really completely perished. Pandeo killed an immortal king, Pandeo killed an immortal king. Ha 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 ha. Duan Yunzheng suddenly laughed wildly, with endless pride and ecstasy on his face. Killing an immortal king. If this was placed in the fairyland, it would be a huge feat. You know, it is the fairyland. Among the immortal kings, many have never accomplished the feat of killing the immortal king. But now, Duan Yunzheng has killed an immortal king. Such achievements are enough to shine in the annals of history. It's a pity that no one knows about such a brilliant record. Duan Yunzheng was ecstatic for a while, and couldn't help but sigh. He felt sorry for himself. He clearly killed an immortal king, but he was here waiting for a bird to shit in a desolate place. No one knew at all. This is like Jinyi, it's like walking at night, it's not beautiful, it's really not beautiful. No, when Master Dao and I return, I will make a big publicity about this achievement. As he spoke, Duan Yunzheng took out a sacred image stone and began to record the endless vision of blood raining all around him. While recording, he did not forget to tell his achievements in front of the sacred stone. However, the situation did not last long. Just as he was recording the scene around him complacently, a green stream of light suddenly burst out from the ancient palace, and then arrived in front of him in an instant. Infinite Heavenly Lord. Duan Yunzheng's eyes suddenly widened. The speed of the green light was so fast that he had no time to react. Seeing that the green light was about to fall on him, Duan Yunzheng only had one thought in his mind. Is it possible that the mysterious strong man in the hall is not dead yet? However, in the next moment, he knew that he had guessed wrong. The green stream of light did not cause any harm to him, but turned into the tender green willow branches wrapped around his whole body, and then he moved away from this place as fast as possible. In an instant, he was thousands of miles away. Infinite Heavenly Lord. Pandeo hasn't searched for treasures yet. Duan Yunzheng screamed. Just now, he was busy recording the scenes around him. He originally thought about entering the ancient palace later and searching for the treasure left behind after the death of the immortal king. But now, this green willow branch, but he was taken so far away in an instant, without giving him a chance to search for the treasure. Put me down. Duan Yunzheng screamed, feeling as if someone had cut his heart out. That was the immortal king. The treasures he left behind after his death must not be comparable to the treasures Duan Yunzheng had collected before. It might even be better than him. The combined value of all the treasures collected before is much higher. In this case, seeing these treasures far away from him is undoubtedly a heartbreaking feeling for Duan Yunzheng that makes him unable to breathe. However, no matter how hard he struggles, the green willow branch wrapped around his body remained motionless, making it impossible for him to break free. Stop struggling, I'm here to save you. If you continue to stay there, you will die soon. The willow branches trembled, and a spiritual thought came out, leaving Duan Yunzheng stunned. Live. He lowered his head and glanced at the willow branches wrapped around him, and was about to say something. But at this moment, At the far end of the world, several incomparable majestic auras suddenly rose up and shot straight into the sky. Go up. Every breath is filled with supreme meaning, and there is even more majestic anger in it. The king has fallen? How can this be? Who is it? It actually caused the death of the king. Search this place for tens of thousands of miles, and interrogate all living creatures, and then kill them. The extremely majestic and majestic auras swept across the 8 wastelands, making the world tremble faintly. And the direction from which those auras came was exactly where Duan Yun's Hung had arrived before, where the mysterious strong man was. No, immortal king. Feeling the aura of supremacy and endless anger, Duan Yun's Hung couldn't help but swallowed and stopped talking obediently. He knew that what the willow branch just said was right. If he stayed there for a moment longer, he might really be discovered by these immortal kings. Duan Yun's Hung couldn't help but shudder when he thought of this. If he really falls into the hands of those immortal kings, I'm afraid he is really not far from death. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 408. Duan Yunchen's heart was beating fast. If he really falls into the hands of the immortal kings of the Dark Realm, the result is obvious. There is no other possibility except death. Even the technique of diverting bad luck could not save him at all. First, because he had already transferred the bad luck transfer technique to the dark powerhouse in the hall, he could not use it a second time in a short period of time. Secondly, although the technique of transferring bad luck is powerful, it can only be transferred to one target at a time. The current situation is that there are obviously several immortal kings coming to the main hall. Even if his bad luck transfer technique can be used, it can only be used against one immortal king, not so many immortal kings. Therefore, the final result is still certain. However, although there are many restrictions. But at this time, Yun's Hung had already deeply understood the power of this technique of diverting bad luck. This is a supreme technique that can kill even the immortal king. Using the body of a true immortal to defeat the immortal king? This kind of achievement has never been heard of in all the heavens and all the worlds and in the ancient history. I'm afraid that even the wilderness back then couldn't do this at all, right? But now, he has done it. Although it is just a wounded and dying immortal king, it is still a fake and a real immortal king. The gap between the existence of the immortal king and the true fairyland is like a giant dragon and an ant. Even if the giant dragon is seriously injured, what can the ants do to the giant dragon? Therefore, Duan Yun's Hung could not be more satisfied with these results. The ancient palace is located. Several majestic figures are located around the ancient palace, blocking out the sky and the sun. The anger that was gathering was as if it was going to destroy this world. Even the blood rain that day was unable to intrude on this area. It was frightened by the auras of several immortal kings, floating around. The king fell. How could he fall? An immortal king said with a gloomy expression. The death of an immortal king for nothing is definitely not good news for the Dark Realm. In particular, the Taiwan was the main force in the war with the immortal realm in the past. Even among the many immortal kings in the Dark Realm, he was definitely the best. Zhang Zhang killed more than one immortal king of the immortal realm and showed the power of the Dark Realm. And now, although the Taiwan has been severely injured due to the previous war, as long as the holiday time is restored, he can still return to his peak condition and fight for the Dark Realm again. But now, the king has died inexplicably. This is simply ridiculous. Could it be that fellow Taoist Taiwan was seriously injured and could not recover, so he finally transformed into a Tao? The immortal king couldn't help but guess. Impossible. Wang Xiuanran shook his head slowly and said. I visited fellow Taoist Taiwan some time ago. Although the wounds in his body have not yet healed, they have stabilized. There is no way he will fall because of this. It is only a matter of time before he returns to his peak. What could be the reason? In the realm of darkness, besides us, who else can pose a threat to fellow Taoist Tai Wang? An immortal king said in confusion. Although the king was seriously injured, in the entire dark realm, except for immortal kings like them, no living beings could pose a threat to the king. Even if there were only immortal realm creatures, the king would not be affected at all. Even if you move, you can't break its defense at all, let alone make it fall. But all the immortal kings in the dark realm have no grudges against the Tai Wang, and it is impossible to take action against the Tai Wang. Moreover, even if it is true, if the immortal king takes action to kill the king, the movement cannot be hidden from the other immortal kings in the dark realm and will definitely be sensed. But the current situation is that the king died quietly, they don't even give these immortal kings of the dark realm time to react. This is really weird. Could it be that a strong man from the immortal realm did it? Wang. Anran said slowly, but then he shook his head and denied his idea. The existence of the immortal realm that can kill the Tai Wang must be the immortal king at last. Not to mention the existence of the immortal king realm. Crossing the chasm between the two realms. Even in the immortal realm, there is really an immortal king who can cross the chasm between the two realms, and it is impossible to hide it from the eyes of the immortal kings present. Not to mention, quietly, all kill the king without anyone noticing. No matter what, let's seal off all the land with a radius of tens of thousands of miles, and search for the souls of all living beings and interrogate them. An immortal king said decisively, causing other immortal kings to nod. Now it seems that this is indeed the only way to investigate the cause of the death of the king. These immortal kings have listed many possibilities, but I am afraid that they will be killed. It is impossible to think that what caused the death of the king was just a little true immortal who smuggled from the fairy land. Infinite Heavenly Lord, you have escaped a disaster, you have escaped a disaster. In the endless distance from the ancient palace, Duan Yunzheng breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the auras of the immortal kings disappearing one by one. Only then did he realize that the Taoist robes on his body were soaked with cold sweat. But then, he turned his attention to the willow branch that appeared in front of him. If it hadn't been for this willow branch that decisively brought him out of danger, Duan Yunzheng would be a dead man now. However, what is this willow branch? Exist. Why did he appear in the hall where the dark powerhouse was, and why did he save himself? Duan Yunzheng was puzzled. And the willow branch seemed to see Duan Yunzheng's confusion, trembled slightly, and said, "Like you, I also come from the fairy land. Like me, are you from the immortal realm?" Duan Yunzheng couldn't help being surprised and blurted out, "Then why are you in the hall of that dark powerful man? Why didn't I find you just now? Also, I wonder what your name is." "This matter is a long story." The willow branches trembled slightly and said, "When I fought with that king, some of my power remained in his body. Now that I have found this opportunity, I exploded and ended it completely. As for my name, you can call me Lucien. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes." Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 409. Liuxian. Duan Yunzheng murmured to himself, repeating the name, but he could not find the slightest answer in his memory. My name must no longer be heard in the fairy land. Seeing Duan Yunzheng's expression of confusion, Lucien seemed to have guessed what he was thinking, and said calmly, "The era I live in is the same generation as Huang. Contemporary with Huang." Duan Yunzheng couldn't help but feel a little shocked. If this is the case, it would make sense why there is no name like Lucien in the immortal realm. After all, after Emperor Huang Tian, the history related to it has been lost in the sand of time. Even the name of Huang has never been spread in the immortal realm in later generations. It is natural that the name of Liuxian should not be revealed. But I don't know what is going on in the immortal realm today. Lucien sighed. In the past, she was entrusted by others to train Emperor Huangtian. But in the end, before Emperor Huangtian could attain the position of Great Luo Immortal Emperor, she had already fallen in the war. After that, her wisp of the remnant soul, attached to this ray of power that remained in the Tai Wang's body, was dormant and sleeping for endless years. I thought that the final result was destined to be killed by the Tai Wang. But who knew that for some reason, the Tai Wang was practicing a big problem arose at that moment, so Lucien pushed the boat along, unleashed all his strength, and gave the king a fatal blow, causing him to transform into a Taoist form. Although until now, Lucien has never understood why the king was here. Such a situation occurred during cultivation. But she could vaguely sense that all of this seemed to have something to do with the fat Taoist priest in front of her. But she didn't know what happened to the immortal realm after she left. Fairyland? Fairyland is doing well now. Duan Yunzheng heard Lucien's question and directly explained and answered her questions. The Huangtian Emperor proved the Tao, defeated the Dark Immortal Emperor, and protected the peace of all heavens and worlds. Then the Immortal Realm and the Dark Realm battled until the current balance state. Duan Yunzheng doesn't know much about the history and current situation of the Immortal Realm, but he more or less knows part of the truth. Therefore, he can still tell Lucien what he knows about the general situation. It turns out that this is the best answer. The Immortal Realm is not dead yet. Lucien murmured to herself. The current results, in her opinion, are already very good. After all, endless years ago, the fairyland where she lived faced a darkness that was enough to make everyone despair. At that time, the situation in the Immortal Realm is much more desperate than it is now. And now, the best answer is that the Immortal Realm can maintain an even match with the Dark Realm. I want to return to the fairyland, do you want to go back with me? After digesting what Duan Yunzheng said, Lucien issued an invitation. Her current state is similar to that of Tai Wang. Both have been severely injured to the extreme. She must find a place to practice quietly in order to return to her former peak state. Therefore, this realm of darkness is by no means a place to stay for a long time. Moreover, the death of the king has attracted the attention of the immortal kings. If it is not protected, other dangers will occur. Infinite Heavenly Lord, Pandeo will go back with you. Duan Yunzheng said without hesitation. Although he has enjoyed staying in the Dark Realm for tens of thousands of years, it's time to go back now. First, after tens of thousands of years, his bad luck transfer technique has been quite effective. Can barely control it, and it will not be like the beginning. In a few days, he will find a strong person to divert his bad luck. Secondly, now his cultivation has been promoted to the peak of the true immortal, and the ancient tomb of an ordinary strong person, he no longer looks down on him. The ancient tomb ruins existing in the immortal king realm are not something he can covet. So continuing to stay in the dark realm now has no great attraction for Duan Yunzheng. Now that there is such an opportunity, it is better to return to the fairyland as soon as possible. However, can you survive the chasm between the two worlds? Duan Yunzheng couldn't help but wonder. After he just arrived in the dark realm, he also thought about returning to the immortal realm, but he was blocked by the chasm between the two realms and couldn't go back at all. The power of that majestic chasm cannot be broken by the existence of the immortal king realm. With his strength, he naturally cannot break the barrier between the two realms. However, this being who calls himself Lucien has been seriously injured to such an extent. Can he still break the barrier between the two realms? Duan Yunzheng can't help but wonder. Because if the two realms are forcibly opened, the failure of Ji Tiankai attracted the attention of the immortal king of the dark realm, so they really couldn't escape. The remaining strength I have now is enough to break the natural barrier between the two realms. But after that, I'm afraid I will fall into a deep sleep, and you will have to take me back to the depths of the fairyland. Lucien told the truth. Infinite Heavenly Lord. Then do it. Duan Yunzheng nodded fiercely. Now the dark territory is no longer a place to stay for a long time. Even if you give it a try, you must leave as soon as possible. After making up his mind, Lucien did not hesitate and took Duan Yun's Hung to the edge of the dark territory. The territory was moving. Lucien's speed was naturally far beyond what Duan Yun's Hung could compare to. Within 2 days, she took Duan Yun's Hung to the two-realm chasm. However, after seeing the situation in front of the two-realm chasm at this moment, Duan Yun's Hung, but I couldn't help being surprised. Damn the infinite God! Why are there so many creatures from the dark realm stationed here now? Duan Yun's Hung couldn't help but be surprised. He remembered that when he first came to the realm of darkness, although there were creatures from the realm of darkness stationed in front of the two realms of the sky, there were only about a few 100,000. But now, not only are there people stationed in front of the two realms of the sky, millions of soldiers from the dark territory lined up, and many powerful men lined up beside them, almost completely surrounding the area in front of the two worlds chasm. Have we been exposed and these guys are coming for us? Duan Yunchen's little heart couldn't help but pound. He thought that his previous behavior was exposed, which was why so many strong men from the dark realm were waiting here to chase him. However, his guess was directly rejected by Lucien. Got it? Nothing to do with you, Lu Cien said calmly. If we are discovered, the ones coming now will definitely not be these creatures from the dark realm, but should be the immortal kings. Most of the people lined up here are beings under the true fairyland. It is undoubtedly a dream to use these people to stop her. It is impossible for the immortal kings of the dark realm not to know this truth. Therefore, the only explanation is, it is that these heroes from the dark realm in front of them are not here for the two of them, but for another purpose. As for that purpose, it must be the immortal realm. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 410. The Dark Realm displays so many ferocious soldiers here, which is probably a disaster rather than a blessing for the immortal realm. Lucien murmured to himself. Generally speaking, the Dark Realm will only do this when a war is about to happen. It gathers the fierce soldiers in the world in one place and prepares to launch an attack on the immortal realm. It doesn't matter, there are two natural chasms, so many dark creatures can't get through at all. Duan Yun's Hung said nonchalantly. Even if he wants to cross the chasm between the two realms alone, it is impossible. He must have the help of the immortal king realm. There are so many ferocious soldiers and creatures in the dark realm. If he wants to cross the two realms all by himself, it is simply impossible. Otherwise, I am afraid that the immortal realm has already been captured by the dark realm. The natural chasm between the two realms is a blessing or a curse. Lucien said calmly to herself. In her era, the great chasm of the two worlds did not yet exist, so it was so difficult to resist the darkness. However, at the same time, it was difficult, but it also cultivated many people who had truly experienced the war for the immortal realm. A strong man who has been tempered. But now, because of the existence of the two-realm chasm created by desolation, the dark realm and the immortal realm are separated, and the danger faced by the immortal realm has also been reduced to the lowest point. This can certainly protect the immortal realm. The creatures on one side, but at the same time, it also makes the creatures on the other side of the fairyland live in peace for a long time, making it extremely difficult to give birth to a truly strong person. Therefore, in Lucien's view, this move does not know whether it is a blessing or a curse. After all, the two worlds, although the natural chasm exists, it cannot exist forever. It will eventually collapse one day. But the strong are different. No matter how time passes, the strong will always exist. Before leaving, he wanted to help Xianyu again. Lucien said to himself. The border of the Dark Realm is now located. Although there are millions of fierce soldiers and many real fairyland masters from the Dark Realm, there is no immortal king sitting there, so he cannot pose any threat to her. However, to other creatures in the immortal realm, these fierce soldiers in the dark realm are nightmare-like existences. So before leaving, Lucien wanted to do his best for the immortal realm. Walk. Thinking of this, Lucien no longer hesitated. He took Duan Yun's hung and rushed towards the chasm between the two realms. Then, in an instant, all his power bloomed. Boom! Between heaven and earth, there was a sudden burst of light, and the sacred light spread in all directions. An ancient willow exuding endless sacred aura suddenly appeared in the void. The ancient willows swayed, surrounded by the aura of chaos, exuding endless light and endless brilliance. Then, hundreds of willow branches on the ancient willow tree shot out in all directions in an instant. The willow branches are shrouded in the runes of the infinite avenue, piercing the void wherever they pass along the way, leaving behind bottomless space cracks. And where the willow branches swayed, all the creatures in the dark realm were naturally helpless and were wiped out by the willow branches and turned into dust. Thousands of willow branches swayed out together, causing heavy losses to the army of dark creatures at the border of the dark realm. This sudden scene completely exceeded the expectations of the creatures in the dark realm. They never thought that there would be an attack coming from behind them. For a time, there was chaos at the border of the dark realm. Time to go. After succeeding with one blow and killing countless dark creatures, Lucien did not hesitate to fight. Instead, he suddenly restrained himself and led Duan Yun's hung towards the chasm of the two realms as quickly as possible. Then he used his last strength to resist. The pressure of the two-realm chasm led Duan Yun's hung to successfully escape from the realm of darkness. Just less than 2 breaths after Lucien left the realm of darkness, majestic and endless pressure descended on the two-realm chasm again. Those who came were none other than the immortal kings of the dark realm. Seeing that the borders of the dark realm were in a mess, and many strong men from the dark realm had suffered heavy losses, the faces of the immortal kings who came were so gloomy that they were almost dripping with water. Come! There are creatures from the fairyland causing trouble in my domain. Damn it, damn it! An immortal king roared angrily. For the realm of darkness, this is absolutely a great shame. With so many immortal kings sitting here, in the end, they didn't know when to put in an immortal king. Not only that, the other party actually also dare to act unscrupulously in the realm of darkness, so rampant, they simply don't take them, the immortal kings, seriously. This person may be related to the death of Taoist friend Tai Wang. Prince Anran said in a deep voice. Almost immediately, he connected the death of the Tai Wang with the existence of this immortal king who killed many powerful men in the dark realm. In this way, everything was explained. Got it? Fairyland. Several immortal kings were filled with murderous intent in their hearts, and they really wanted to cross the chasm between the two realms to destroy the immortal realm. But when they think of the scene where they crossed the chasm between the two realms last time and were crushed and defeated by the mysterious strong man who stepped from the long river of time, the hearts of the immortal kings couldn't help but feel a little cold. The scene where Huang took action last time, crushing the dead and killing the immortal king who crossed the border, was still vivid in the minds of all the immortal kings present. After all, no one wants to be the next person to die. Therefore, after hesitating for a moment, these immortal kings temporarily gave up their plan to cross the chasm between the two realms. Fairyland, when that day comes, all of this must be sorted out. Anran took a deep look at the chasm between the two realms. Only those who have been promoted to the realm of the immortal king know the ultimate secret of the dark realm. And they are all waiting for that day to come. When that day comes, the immortal realm will eventually be destroyed by the dark realm. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 411. The immortal kings of the dark realm stared in the direction of the chasm between the two realms for a moment with great reluctance, but finally gave up on pursuing the past. At this moment, Lucien has taken Duan Yun's Hung and is about to cross the chasm between the two realms and arrive in the immortal realm. With just the power of an immortal king, he can so easily cross the chasm between the two realms. Will the immortal kings chase after them when they find out? Duan Yun's Hung couldn't help but said when he saw that Lucien could cross the chasm between the two realms so easily. There were many immortal kings in the Dark Realm. Not long ago, he heard that several immortal kings crossed the chasm between the two realms to attack the immortal realm. Now that Lucien is making a big fuss in the Dark Realm, will those immortal kings be furious and attack him? This natural chasm cannot be passed by ordinary immortal kings. Lu Xian said lightly. But you? Duan Yun's Hung was puzzled. The natural chasm between the two realms cannot be broken by ordinary immortal kings. How did you get here? Duan Yun's Hung remembered clearly that this Liuxian had been seriously injured and died before, and could only barely survive in the body of the prince. This is not my true body. Lu Xian spoke calmly and revealed a piece of news that shocked Duan Yun's Hung. In the Great War that year, I fought against the immortal kings alone. Although I killed many immortal kings in the end, I was also exhausted. Part of the immortal king's power penetrated into the Tai Wang's body, while my true body fell into eternal sleep. As for what happened next, although I don't know everything, I know a little bit about it. My true body must have been with Huang, and then left this world together with Huang. My true body still exists, crossing thousands of realms, projecting my power, which naturally increases my strength, and is beyond the reach of ordinary immortal kings. It's not the real person, it's actually like this. Duan Yun's Hung murmured to himself, but immediately showed a puzzled look on his face. In this case, why do you still exist in that king's body? With the blessing of the original power, wouldn't it be possible to break all the constraints and kill the king soon? Of course not. Lucien shook his head. I am in the body of the immortal king, which is equivalent to being isolated from all the ways. Naturally, the main body cannot feel my existence and cannot send down my power. It's not until I escape from the trap that I can interact with my true body, and then I can gain the power that is projected from my true body. I see. Duan Yun's Hung suddenly realized it, and there was no longer any doubt in his heart. While the two were talking, the pressure around him suddenly disappeared. Duan Yun's Hung took a closer look, only to find that he had suddenly crossed the chasm between the two worlds and returned to the fairyland again. Fairyland, Master Tao, I'm back. Feeling the familiar atmosphere around him, Duan Yun's Hung couldn't help but feel tears filling his eyes. It's been tens of thousands of years. He was thrown into the realm of darkness in a daze, and now, he, Duan Yun's Hung, is back. After tens of thousands of years apart, I don't know how my fellow Taoists are doing now. It's time for them to see the supreme elegance of the poor Taoist formation that kills the immortal king. Duan Yun's Hung said proudly. Although he now knows that the fall of the Tai Wang has the greatest relationship with Lucien. But this does not prevent him from taking the credit for the fall of the Tai Wang. Look, Dao Master, I only have the cultivation level at the pinnacle of the true immortal realm can actually kill the immortal king. Such supreme combat power and supreme grace, I'm afraid even if you search the entire history of the immortal realm, you won't be able to find it, right? That's the immortal king. Don't say that. Ya Ling Xiu, Yun Ruoxi, Gzi, Queen Xiang, these guys, even the ruthless emperor, have never had such a brilliant record. Now, he has become the existence that kills the immortal king, isn't it the entire immortal world? Duan Yun's Hung was a great hero in the domain? Duan Yun's Hung was elated. However, just as he was imagining it in his mind, between heaven and earth, there was an endless sacred, brilliant and immeasurable power, which suddenly descended and filled all the tangible and intangible subtle places. That brilliant power is as powerful as a prison, it is the supreme power that is above the immortal king realm. And this brilliant and endless power is not just one, but there are three. That majestic and extremely powerful power Duan Yun's Hung was so frightened that he sat on the ground even though Lucien was protecting him. Infinite humming God. Where did such a terrifying existence appear? The fairyland has been captured. Duan Yun's Hung said with a look of shock on his face. His arrogant attitude just now was instantly wiped away. All the auras he could feel were above the immortal king realm. It is very likely that such existences have reached the legendary quasi-immortal emperor realm. How could such existences appear in the immortal realm? Aren't the most powerful ones in the immortal realm those immortal kings? Duan Yusheng was shocked, he was dumbfounded. He hadn't come back for tens of thousands of years. Why did he feel like the fairyland had changed? However, the shock in Duan Yunzhen's heart was not over yet. The next scene he saw almost made him bite off his tongue. With the sudden emergence of the three supreme powers, three figures containing endless coercion suddenly appeared in front of him and Lucien. Of the three figures, one was tall and tall, with a chaos bell above his head. Looking at all directions. One person is stepping on the nine-color immortal cauldron, with flying black hair, like a supreme heavenly emperor, suppressing all the disobedient gods. And the third person is a woman with dancing hair, white clothes like snow, and elegant. Peerless. Duan Yun's Hung has never seen the first two people, but he is very familiar with the third woman. Isn't this the ruthless emperor? Didn't she cross the sea of 10,000 realms? Now it's just the past after 10,000 years, he actually came back. Also, the current ruthless emperor seems to have broken through the realm of the immortal king and became a quasi-immortal emperor. At this moment, all the pride in Duan Yunzhen's heart couldn't help but be shattered. He still wanted to show off when he came back. Now it seems that there is nothing to show off. The ruthless emperor has already become a quasi-immortal emperor. Oh, it's you. After the ruthless emperor arrived, he saw that the creature coming across the chasm between the two realms turned out to be Duan Yun's Hung, and his sharp eyes slowly calmed down. However, the three people's eyes still stopped on Lucien. Presumably, you are Lucien. Yetiandi looked at it for a moment and then said with a smile. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 412. Good. Lucien spoke calmly, and at the same time he was looking at the ruthless Yetiandi, Emperor Wushi, and the other three people. There was a hint of uncontrollable admiration in his eyes. Unexpectedly, after I left, talented beings like you were born after the immortal realm. In this way, I can rest assured. Lucien sighed slightly. Just before arriving at the immortal realm, she was still full of worry about the current situation of the immortal realm. But now, after seeing the ruthless emperor and three other people, they have all become quasi-immortal emperors. After entering the realm, the anxiety in Lucien's heart also disappeared without a trace. The three quasi-immortal emperors, no matter what era they are placed in, can be regarded as invincible existences that have held down Ding for a period of time. There are three quasi-immortal emperors such as the ruthless emperor protecting the fairyland, so the fairyland has no worries. After all, even in the dark realm at this moment, according to Lucien's exploration just now, there is probably no quasi-immortal emperor. However, although he felt a little relieved, Lucien still reminded the ruthless emperor and others. I came from the dark realm, although I have never sensed the existence of a quasi-immortal emperor in the dark realm. But I can vaguely sense that the immortal kings of the dark realm seem to be planning and waiting for something. There seems to be unknown secrets hidden behind the dark realm. Although you have become quasi-immortal emperors now, you still have to be careful. Although Lucien is in the immortal king realm at the moment and has been seriously injured, his true body has already left with Emperor Huangtian and has been promoted to a higher and endless realm. Although his current true body is far away from this Wufa realm, he still has some power, spanning the distance of time and space, came to this world and blessed Lucien's clone, allowing her to perceive some more profound secrets. That's why she reminded the ruthless emperor and others to be careful. Don't fall into the trap of the dark realm. Oh. In this case, you still need to plan carefully. Listening to Lucien's words, Emperor Yetian moved slightly in his heart. Originally, they planned to have one person sit in the immortal realm, and the other two people would go into the dark realm to explore and sweep first to speed up the progress of regaining the dark realm. After all, with their current combat power in the quasi-immortal emperor realm, whether in the immortal realm or the dark realm, they are enough to equalize everything. But now, after listening to Lucien's reminder, Emperor Yetian and others, he couldn't help but suppress the thoughts in his heart, and prepared to wait and see again. However, Emperor Yetian then turned his gaze to Duan Yunzheng, who was standing next to Lucien, and said with a half smile but not a smile. I heard fellow Taoist ruthless person say that you are very interested in tomb robbing. When you were in the lower realm, you also searched for the tomb of this emperor. I wonder if you can gain anything. Ahem, the senior was joking, how could the junior do such a thing? Duan Yunshen's expression froze and he quickly explained. In front of Emperor Yetian, he was like a mouse meeting a cat. He didn't dare to have any arrogant attitude. Just kidding, this is a quasi-immortal emperor. Not that just the soul of the immortal emperor who can survive in a black rotten wooden box. His technique of diverting bad luck can only barely cope with the severely injured immortal king. In front of a quasi-immortal emperor in full power, it is completely useless. What? It's a pity that the emperor of the lower realm has not returned for eternity. If you can gain something, you can also make me reminisce about the past. Emperor Yetian sighed. Since coming to the immortal realm in the past, he and Emperor Wuxi have never returned to the lower realm. Although Emperor Yetian stayed in the immortal realm for significantly longer than the time in the lower realm. But when it comes to feelings, his feelings for the lower world are much deeper than those of the fairyland. After all, it was the place where he was born and rose, and it also left the most profound memory in his life. Boom! Just when Emperor Yetian was sighing, from the distant horizon, several roaring sounds suddenly came. Along with these roaring sounds, there are also several auras of the immortal king that are far away and tower over the true fairyland. After sensing these breaths, Emperor Yetian couldn't help but reveal a smile. Those little guys finally became immortal kings. Who is becoming the immortal king? Duan Yunzheng swallowed, and he naturally sensed the aura in the distance that was breaking through the immortal king realm. Moreover, the aura was not just one, but 4 in total. 4 in total. The Supreme Being is currently breaking through the immortal king. Who is it? They are a few little guys who came from the lower world just like us in the past. The ruthless man whispered calmly. After tens of thousands of years of hard work in the previous rounds of the 2 realms pass, he has finally become the immortal king, which is considered okay. A few little guys from the lower realm. When Duan Yunzheng heard the words of the ruthless emperor, the names of Ye Lingxiu, Yun Ruoxi, Jitsi, and Empress Xiang immediately popped into his mind. Although he has not seen those breakthroughs yet, the existence of the immortal king realm, but just listening to the words of the ruthless emperor at this moment, he could make a guess in his mind. But, those 4 guys have now become immortal kings. Duan Yunzheng felt unbelievable. He was in the realm of darkness after tens of thousands of years of experience, he has collected countless treasures, and now he has just reached the peak of the true immortal realm. In his own opinion, this is already unimaginable speed. Duan Yunzheng is still thinking about this return. When he arrived in the immortal realm, he had to show off to those 4 guys. After all, when he was in the lower realm, he was oppressed by those 4 guys. As a result, he had to bury himself in the end, preparing to wait until Ye Lingxiu and others after leaving the lower world, he was reborn. But now, listening to the words of the ruthless emperor, those four guys have actually become immortal kings. What speed is this? Duan Yunzheng was shocked. But after the shock, he felt but he couldn't help but feel a sense of desolation. Monsters, they are all monsters. Not to mention the ruthless emperor, he has already achieved the quasi-immortal emperor realm in just tens of thousands of years since he came to the fairyland. Even those four guys, has now become the immortal king. And now he is only at the peak of the true immortal realm. Doesn't it mean that he will continue to be bullied by those four guys? When he thinks of this, Duan Yunzheng feels helpless. The feeling of love. Infinite Heavenly Lord, I can't live this day.